It's time to pull those belts tight, race fans. The front stretch is coming at you, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Now, here's Dan Taylor and Dirk Houston.
Well, good morning to you, race fans, and welcome to the front stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs, online at joeskarting.com. Fast-paced, white-knuckle racing just across the river on 23rd Avenue. Get over to Joe's Karting today. Do yourself right with a little indoor kart racing, and it is the final show of 2019. Boy, we talked about it last weekend, and I don't know, it's just something you talk about more and more as you get older, but the year just seemed to have flown right by. I mean, it felt like we were getting ready for the Silver Dollar Nationals, and all of a sudden we were at Kansas for the October race, and now here we are, the final show of 2019.
I hope everybody had a Merry Christmas. Now it's on to a Happy New Year and all that good stuff. And as always, with our last show, since with holiday scheduling and recording and stuff, we missed out on the passing of Junior Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
And for those of you that don't think this man was a giant, in the sport, he was huge.
Mm-hmm.
He helped form the sport in the way it's gone.
Well, he was one of the first super teams. Like, he was one of the first guys to bring multiple talented drivers together and create basically what we know today as the super teams. The Hendrick with four top drivers, the Joe Gibbs with four top drivers, and so on and so forth.
That's correct. And along with prison stays and running moonshine, I mean, he is literally NASCAR in a nutshell.
Yeah, he is the epitome of it. He's a lot of people know this just as a bit of a little factoid, but he started his racing career running moonshine from regulators.
And getting arrested and doing prison time. And so evidently he was better at driving the race car than he was at running moonshine.
I think the story goes that he really enjoyed doing it, but he got tired of getting arrested, so he thought, well, I'll go race this thing NASCAR. And see what I can do, and see what we can do with it, and he was incredibly successful with it.
Yeah, that he was. I never had the pleasure to meet him. I'd seen him at the track a few times, but he was pretty much out of the sport when I started working the National Series stuff. So that's one of the things that I'm not going to say it's going to haunt me, because it's not going to haunt me, but I wish I would have got to shake his hand,
right.
Something like that. But
yeah. We've all got those. I mean, I've obviously being late to the sport, I never got to experience the older generation that you got to really enjoy watching. Bob Koziski run and Joe and Steve and Ed, and see how dominant the Koziskis were, and the start of the Zeitners, and got to see it, watch Sunset in the WDRL days. I mean, those are things that people talk a lot about that they never got to, that they cherish as a part of the racing memory. I never got to experience it.
Yep. Yeah, it's a little higher level than that, but it's the same sentiment.
Right, exactly. So rest in peace, Junior. I know he had been, the articles were talking about his failing health. It had been coming for a while. Those close to him knew that it was only a matter of time, and unfortunately that just seems to be happening a lot. I mean, it's a part of life.
Well, I think they said he was 88 years old, so obviously, he was on borrowed time. I think what's average age of a male now, like 75 or 76 years or something like that.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
And obviously his life was very full. I mean, from one end to the other, or one end of the spectrum to the other. But he'll be missed. And prayers out to his family and all his close friends.
Coming up for today's show, we're going to talk with the gas man, Jack Dover. So close at winning another Nebraska 360 Sprint Series championship, but fell short by, I believe, just 5 measly points. Samantha Bernard, who is an engineer for GoodYear, is going to join us in turn number 3. And then in turn number 4, we're going to do a little bit of retrospective thoughts back on the year that was 2019. But before we get to all of that, we talked about the unfortunate passing of Junior Johnson. I wanted to get to a couple of more news and notes that had come out since we had last talked last Sunday, that NASCAR has actually announced they're planning on more impound races in 2020. For those, I mean, I know what an impound race is, but from a technical side of it, Dirk, can you kind of give us a little bit more insight on what maybe NASCAR goes with the impound races, the thought behind them?
Well, the thought behind them is to just shorten the whole program. Less work hours for everybody. I mean, we started doing those in the truck series, I'm going to say 2003. Mm-hmm. And you would inspect the vehicles, and it's basically what trucks and Xfinity have been doing for years. You do your inspection, you qualify, then you hang around and race. You know, I don't think NASCAR is going to do it all in one day like that very often, but they are definitely going to skip one inspection process.
Which takes, 4 or 5 hours?
I think they usually allow 3.
Okay.
But for the teams that get to go through 3 or 4 times, you know, which now, again, all your penalties will be derived from your qualifying inspection.
Mm-hmm.
They may, you know, I'm not sure exactly what their setup's going to be, but they may do a little more of an extensive post-qualifying inspection than what they've done in years past. Normally they take about 3, maybe 5 cars up that are up towards the front, or somebody that has a big increase from their practice speed.
Okay.
You know, I was 22nd in practice, now I'm on the pole.
Right.
Well, obviously something got switched, you know, so we're going to look at that car. But they'll do something along those lines, I'm sure. And then after the impound, the only things they were ever allowed to change was tape on the grill. You know, because everybody tapes it completely shut for qualifying.
Right.
So they were allowed to readjust their tape, and they were allowed to adjust their track bar. And then right before the race, they're allowed to reset tire pressures. During qualifying, they've got a certain number they have to be above.
Right.
You know, minimum pressure is whatever, 30 pounds. They can run 50 if they want.
Mm-hmm.
Just can't run below 30.
Okay.
So they'll be able to adjust the air pressure too.
And you talked about several times at Daytona how when you would get up at like 4 o'clock in the morning, and then run down to the track, and you would basically be there until
midnight.
Yeah, so it's an incredibly long day that really wears very quickly, especially on the schedule we have. I'm all for these impounds as long as we don't start to have the inspection issues that we had 2-3 years ago, where there was so many cars failing. We still have that, but it doesn't feel like it's as frequent as it was before.
Well, that's because they've upped the penalty.
Right.
You know, now the risk is much greater, you know, as compared to the reward still being the same.
Absolutely.
You know, if they'd been tripling the purse money, you'd still see the monster lines, you know, going through inspection 3 and 4 times. But now that, you know, we're starting to take personnel away, we're starting to take practice time away, everything that they're doing, you know, now really cuts them down, not only for the race they're at, but for the next race. That's, you know, to me, the more important part. I just wonder if they're going to still have a handful of races where they do qualifying and the pit road selection from the previous race.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know one race they're pretty much going to have to do that, and that's Pocono.
Right.
But I still haven't read the actual race procedure for that 2-day event. Are they going to, you know, just start the top 25 and, you know, are they going to invert the top 10? How are they going to do that? Are they just going to start them heads up from how they finish on Saturday to the race on Sunday?
I think that's as far as they have said. They haven't really expanded too much other than basically they're going to invert the finishing position for race number 2 from race number 1. So however they finish in race number 1, whoever won the race is now starting tail and Charlie for race number 2.
Yeah, and see, and personally I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
You know, because you don't know where they would have qualified. I'm thinking if they won the race, they were probably a pretty fast car, and they'd probably be qualifying in the top 5 or 8.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't know.
You're going to get a lot of passing that first stage. A lot of passing, and maybe even some carnage. Brendan Gaughan announced that he plans to make 2020 his final season of racing. The driver has been around for a very long time, been a really good friend of the show, an amazing personality. I just hope and pray that if he has decided to retire from racing altogether, that he becomes more involved with the broadcast of the races. He's an incredibly colorful guy. He's really, really funny, and he's pretty damn knowledgeable.
Well, I'm a little mad because I just spent about an hour with him back on December 12th and never said a word to me about it. I just know he's got a lot going in the fire. He's starting to do a lot more around the casino. So I don't know if you're going to see him in the announcer's booth a whole bunch more, because I think his stuff there at the casino's kind of taken over. His dad's getting up there in age, and you know, he's delegated a lot of authority down through the years. And Brendan's got his moonshine business going there with City Lights Shine, and
so
they actually had a trailer inside the casino where they were mixing City Lights Shine cocktails when I was down there.
So 2020 is projected to be his final season. That'll be tough to watch him go, but what a fun guy. We hope we can meet up with him a couple more times and get him back on the show.
He is still going to stay with his off-road racing stuff. Him and his nephew just won the Baja 500 in their class. I don't know, 3-4 weeks ago they had that race. You know, he's still out there driving and still out there hustling, and he really enjoys that off-road stuff. So
We're going to take a break. We're going to come back in turn number 2. The gas man, Jack Dover, is going to sit down and talk with us about his 2019 season, including his run at an attempt for another Nebraska 360 championship. And then Samantha Bernard, who is going to continue our Women in Motorsports series. She's an engineer with GoodYear. We'll talk to her about what she's doing with the tire company that makes NASCAR go round. We're going to take a break. We'll be back on the front stretch.
Red Oak Fabrication is excited to announce they're expanding their powder coating business, which means quicker turnaround times at the same great price. Get all the benefits of a powder-coated chassis for just $275 for a bare frame. Ask Jordan about special pricing for large and small projects today. Email Jordan F. at redoakfabrication.com. Located at the intersection of Highway 34 and 48 in Red Oak, Iowa, or at redoakfabrication.com. A beautiful and durable service is just down the road.
Every race car driver has run into the same problem. It's well past normal parts store closing hours, but you need that one to finish your car. The guys who brought you White Knuckle Racing by the River bring you Joe's Karting Racing Parts and Tire Store. Open until 10 p.m. Monday to Thursday and open until 11 p.m. on Friday and Saturday. A parts store that fits your after-hours schedule, and you can turn a few laps at Joe's Karting while you're waiting for your part to get pulled from their warehouse. joeskarting.com for more information.
We're hooked up in turn 2 and still showing the green flag on the front stretch.
Welcome back to the front stretch. Ready to do another Red Oak Fabrication interview. Just $275 can get you a fully powder-coated chassis at the intersection of Highway 34 and 48 in Red Oak, Iowa. More information available online at redoakfabrication.com. Bare chassis, powder-coated and ready to roll, just $275. You need to get some sandblasting done, maybe a little reworking. It's going to be just a little bit more. But you can always get a free quote. Jordan F. at redoakfabrication.com. Joining us on the show now, the driver of the number 53 sprint car throughout the Midwest, known as the Gas Man. That is Jack Dover. Jack, it's great to have you back on the show, bud.
Thank you. It's been a while.
It's always great to have you on the show. You're always a fun conversation. Talk about your season. Another good season for you, but I know that with your goal at the beginning of the year, you'd like to get closer to about 20 wins. I think you were somewhere around 12 or 13 this year.
Weren't even close to that either.
Oh, okay. That's just rubbing salt in the wound.
We had 9 wins. Our goal was 20 wins, and we won a championship. We won the MSTS 360s up north. We led the Nebraska 360s points up to the last race, and when I'm out there, I'm racing for wins, and if you keep winning, you're going to win championships. And I went for the lead on the last 2 laps ago and ended up wrecking the car, and that cost us a championship with the Nebraska 360s. So overall, it's a good year. The way I've looked back at it, we had 2 nights where we probably could have had a better result if things would have went a little different. One night we got a tire put on backwards after it went flat, so that kind of cost us a win, I feel like. And then another night I flipped the car twice and had a DNF there. So I think if we could have at least finished that night, that might have put us in contentions of another championship and could have won 2 this year.
Take me back to that final that wreck at Eagle for what ended up being the points night.
You were the announcer, weren't you?
I was. Turns out the regular guy was on break.
I heard about that.
Yeah. Going into turn 3, you felt like you had a shot, jumped the cushion. Did you tap the wall coming out of 4?
Yeah. 2 laps ago, we passed Tyler Drucke going in turn 3, and I knew as soon as I entered the corner I was going in way too hard and just slid up. And normally if you go in that hard, the cushion will catch you before you hit the wall, but we got up there too close to the wall and there's really no cushion, so we slid up there, hit the wall, and I hit it with my right rear, and I think it flattened the tire. And then when it did that, I pulled a wheelie and put the front end in the wall, and I think it flattened my front tire also, so I went all the way down the front straightaway with both right side tires flat and ran it into a tractor tire.
A hard hit.
Yeah, very
hard hit.
I was actually surprised when we tore the car apart that week. All we really bent was a bumper and bent the frame a little bit. I don't think it really affected the car any.
And you've never been much of a points racer. You've talked about that nearly every time you come on the show. Like you just said, go for the wins. The points championship will follow. And you went for the win. Unfortunately, that was what ended up being the reason why you didn't win the points championship. Do you regret that at all? Would you have changed it at all?
No.
I'm sure with a wrecked race car, you'd have changed the way you went into the corner or the way you exited or something like that. But You just still gone for it?
Yeah, I mean, I've looked back at it quite a bit, and I wouldn't have changed anything because, like I said earlier, I'm going for wins, and if I win, championships are going to come. So if I would have changed anything that night, I would have got out of my car and looked at my car and probably had them get it back to the pits because all we really needed was a Jacobs ladder and right rear tire, and I probably could have finished and got a couple spots.
Yeah. But a great race nonetheless, and a great season. I mean, second on the year is not bad at all.
No, I mean, every night I go to race, I'm always wanting to finish on the podium. So we've won the championship a couple years, so to come out second, I'm happy with it.
Yeah, and to finish second to a guy like Jason Martin, that's nothing to hang your head about. He's right now, I think he's one of the hottest guys in the area.
Every time we go race and Jason Martin's there, he's one of those guys you worry about when you pull in the pits. He's going to be a contender. So to finish second behind him, he definitely made me work for it this year, and I just kind of messed that up there the last night.
What big purse races did you go and race this year, and how'd you do?
Jackson Nationals, we ended up third. That paid $10,000, and then we went to Jesse Hockett Memorial down in Wheatland, Missouri. That paid $10,000, and we were running fourth and broke a rear end, so that put us with the DNF. And then Devil's Bowl, like I said, we finished seventh on Friday night and third Saturday night, and first night paid $3,000, second night paid $4,000. So whenever we went out with the national guys or our guys or the guys up north, we were always up front. So it's a good feeling, and we absolutely learned a lot this year. So I'm really excited to go into next year.
Scale of 1 to 10, what would you give your year this year?
A 6 or 7.
Yeah.
I wish it was a 10 because then that mean it was perfect, but
Right.
that'll never happen. So
Do you think Donnie Schatz ever gives himself a 10?
never.
No.
Nope.
Okay.
Even if he wins, I've heard him say that wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
But you
So-
know, in fairness to yourself, you're running more of the big money shows. You're heading up north and you're racing against 50-plus car 360 fields up at Jackson.
Some of the best.
Some of the best of the best, and even with MSTS or the Nebraska 360, the competition level is raising to you because they've been forced to do that.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I mean, we didn't win as many races as we wanted to, but we were also racing against stiffer competition. Like Stan said, there's 50 or 60 cars a night there because it pays good money every Friday night. And I also agree with Stan. What he said is I'm out there racing with the best, and it makes me a better driver, I feel like. And then I come back to Nebraska 360s or MSTS, and those guys are having to work harder, and it's making them better drivers. So it's definitely getting better each year. And we're just not quite sure what we're going to do next year yet. I got some ideas in my head.
You really kind of hit a new stride this year. Really cool thing that you and your buddy Brody did. Brody always wanted to come over and race the Knoxville Nationals for the 360s and the 410s. And you guys worked out a deal to get him and his brother to come over. Was it your spare car that they raced?
Yeah, it was actually a car I had sitting there in the shop. It was supposed to be in the trailer, but it just never made it there for some reason. Luckily, we never had to use it. We kind of discussed about him coming over and renting the car and driving it, and it was just a very cool opportunity to get to do it for him.
Yeah, because it was a special thing, too. It wasn't just another guy's dream to race the Knoxville Nationals. His dad, the memory of his dad, the Flying Scotsman.
Flying Scotsman, yep.
That's why he really wanted to do it. Because it was always his dad and his dream to go and race at Knoxville for the Nationals. Obviously, his dad passed away a few years ago, like he talked about on the show. That's got to be a really cool thing that you were able to give him an opportunity to come over and make it happen.
Yeah, it was. He was very grateful, and the greatest thing to see is when we got to Knoxville, and over at Knoxville Nationals, his last lap, he pulled in, and just to see those tears come from his eyes, you could tell it really meant something to him.
Yeah. Really cool thing there, and I know you guys have probably got some stories.
Oh, yeah.
You got to write a book someday.
You think?
We got some crazy nights.
You got to write a book someday. So tell us what's going on for 2020.
I don't know yet. I got some ideas in my head, and I just don't know which direction I want to go.
Well, let's have some insight. Where's Jack thinking about going?
I'm going to retire.
Okay.
No, I'm
I
just
don't
kidding.
believe that for a second.
You said that a couple of years ago.
Well,
worked out
that
great.
was actually going to happen. Then a sponsor came on board, so I figured I better stay.
Yeah,
so.
Dennis tried to retire too.
Is this the Parker School of Retirement?
I learned it from Dennis.
I retired.
Yeah, and that's going to stick too.
It is.
It's not.
I got the idea of staying around and doing what we've been doing. Maybe ASCS National Tour again. That's in the kind of working on seeing if I can do it as far as budget goes. And maybe running Knoxville weekly with the 410s. So there's 3 options. I just got to find out which one fits the budget the best.
So when you're doing the budget, you're thinking about how can we figure out how to run the ASCS show? Do you look at their schedule and say, okay, that race is this place. That's probably going to be $2,500 to get there. That race is at this place. It's only $1,500 to get there. Is that kind of how you're doing your budget and you're figuring out if you can make it work?
Yeah, you just got to – so they're planning on 45 shows next year, 45 to 50 shows. And like you said, you got to figure out the miles. And if you're on the top 10 in points, you get $800 a night for tow money. So say they're coming here to I-80 and it's only 20 minutes for me.
Yeah.
And they're racing 2 nights, it's $800 a night, so I get $1,600 just for going 20 minutes.
And you would think that night you should be getting a podium check, some sort of check. But even if you don't, you're not going to spend $1,600 for 2 nights at I-80.
I hope not.
Is that figure you told us a few years ago that you figured it was somewhere around $1,400 a night to drop your tailgate at a racetrack?
I figured it up. It's about $1,150.
$1,150 now.
Yep.
Okay.
It's like $1,500 I spend in pit passes every year. You just got to take those things in consideration. Yeah. Oil filters, just stuff like that.
Tires that are on backwards.
Yeah. Yep.
Who did that, by the way?
I mean, obviously.
I'm not going to mention any names.
Okay. Does it start with an A?
Yeah. He'll probably be listening to the radio show.
Obviously, you can hang with those guys on the tour. You know, you could be a top 5 car week in, week out. And the whole key to that is the travel expense money. Having that budgeted to getting you there, and I think it probably goes without saying you could make it race to race on what you win, but if somebody covered that travel expense,
and that's what we're working on, is see if we can get somebody to pay for the fuel, because if somebody pays for the fuel, then we can obviously put that tow money.
You get a front stretch credit card.
Get a what?
Get a front stretch credit card.
There you go.
That wouldn't get you a
front
Ronnie
stretch.
inside
It's
of a
rubber.
That wouldn't get you a Ronnie inside of a Cheerio.
Yeah.
So if we got somebody to cover the fuel expenses in our maybe say hotels or pit passes, we'd definitely probably consider going out there on the national tour.
Okay. And that covers from where to where? That's the national, not the Midwest tour?
Yeah, that covers Washington, Oregon, Montana, out to Pennsylvania, Texas, all over.
And that's even harder because when you're going up to Oregon, you can't just take off of work Friday afternoon and get to the racetrack, because that's 10-hour drive, 12-hour drive
to Oregon.
Yeah,
like 24.
Okay,
and
it's as far to Oregon as it is farther to Oregon than is to Texas, because Texas is about a 12-hour drive.
Yeah,
12 to 14-hour drive.
Yeah.
Good land. I never would have.
And it's 2 race weekends.
Yep. So that's another thing that went through my head also. Like you said, I got to consider work. Maybe I'd have to fly in and out. I don't know.
Yeah.
So.
All right. So that's in the works. You're going to try to go ASCS racing, but you're going to need a good sponsor.
Yeah.
In order to step up and do that. Jack Dover Racing on Facebook.
Jack Dover Racing on Facebook, and you can go to our website and contact us there also.
Okay. Merchandise still available, or is the merchandise in the off season also?
You can go to our Facebook and our website and order merchandise from there.
Okay.
And beginning of 2020, say probably April, we're going to order some hoodies and shirts, and I'll have them on board of the trailer also.
All right, JackDoverRacing.com, Jack Dover Racing on Facebook. What else you want to talk about?
Just got to thank my sponsors, Liquid Trucking, Carpet Land, Backlund Plumbing, Triple S Motorsports, Certified Transmission, Speedway Engines, Spike Chassis, just everybody that makes this possible for us to have such a great season. We almost had 2 championships, so without them, we probably wouldn't have a championship. We're almost winning 2, so just very grateful that I got good partners behind us.
And you mentioned that you're with the Spike Chassis. You going to stay with that chassis?
Yeah, actually just ordered one for me and one for Chris Roseland with Backlund Plumbing. He's going to get his son into some 305 racing next year.
Good deal. All right. JackDoverRacing.com. Always do like having you on the show. Thanks a lot for coming around. Best of luck. We'll get you on before 2020. That way we'll get the solid plans for what's going on.
There you go. Maybe I'll be racing NASCAR or something.
Maybe.
Maybe I'll leak the secret out.
Ooh. All right. We're going to take a break. We'll be back on the front stretch.
We all have that coworker that runs their mouth off at how great they are. They shot a 5 under par, 95-mile-an-hour fastball, bench press 375, brah. Wouldn't you love to shut them up by schooling them at Joe's Karting? Council Bluffs' premier indoor karting track, professionally designed so each corner is your opportunity to embarrass your coworker. Call Buddy for your next company outing at 712-256-5278. Joe's Karting, white knuckle racing just across the river on 23rd Avenue next to AMC 17.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Quaker Steak and Lube is the official watering hole of the front stretch and the home of MAV TV, featuring action from the Lucas Oil Late Model Series.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Located on Mid-America Drive in Council Bluffs.
Feather the brake and get back to the gas. Dan and Dirk are headed into turn 3 on the front stretch.
Welcome back to the front stretch. Rolling into turn number 2, and it's time to sit down with somebody behind the scenes in the world of NASCAR. More behind the scenes at GoodYear, helping tell teams what they need to do and don't do. Joining us on the phone, Samantha Bernard, an engineer for GoodYear. How are you doing, ma'am?
I'm doing well. How are you?
We're definitely enjoying being able to talk a little bit of racing, which we get to do every Sunday morning, so it's nothing new for us. But again, we appreciate you joining us and kind of talk a little bit about how you got to where you are today.
Sure. So I have a degree in chemistry, and I started at GoodYear in raw materials engineering. And at the time, I did that for about 3 years. And then at the time, it was getting a little bit boring and mundane. And I had met some of the GoodYear race engineers, obviously, through work, and they got me and my family ticket to a race. So we were able to go to Dover in the springtime. Yeah. And we got to go down in the pits, and it was super exciting. And I found out that a job came open in racing, so I interviewed and was able to get it. I work on more development now, but when I started, I did more mixing of the compounds.
Were you a fan of NASCAR before that Dover race, or was that the drug in the vein?
I think that was a drug in the vein. I mean, I knew that was something GoodYear was involved in, and I've seen it on TV, not too much at home, but at other friends' houses and at bars and stuff. But I never really got into it until I was there, able to experience it.
Now, you said home. Where is home for you? What state you out of?
Oh, Akron, Ohio.
Oh, yeah, kind of a place where there's a little rubber around.
Yeah.
So you got into the world of, I'm sorry, go back a little bit. You said that before you got into, you were mixing the compounds before, and now you're more into the back end, or do I have that around?
Yeah, so before when I first started into GoodYear racing, I dealt more with mixing of the rubber, and now I work on more development type stuff. So before it was kind of just maintaining and making sure everything that we got in was to its specification and exactly how we wanted it, and now I'm kind of looking into the future. So how can we improve tires? And when we go to tire tests, what can we do to make sure we bring the best tire to the racetrack?
So I was just going to say, so now you're really involved in the testing part of it.
Yes.
And so when they talk about bringing a new compound to a track, that's the product of your hard work.
Yes, yeah. And we have a team of compounders over there that we all work with. So a lot of the times we're all making, decisions on what kind of stuff we want to bring, but we all have individual projects that we work on. So when you see something that gets to go to the racetrack after that you've been working on for a while, it's pretty rewarding.
Do you have a group of tracks based on your location, or a group of tracks based on their style that you can focus on?
For development, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, well, that or the race. Like, are you hanging around the mile-and-a-half tracks, or are you at the 2 miles and the super speedways, or are you at the short tracks?
So we have a group of about 12 engineers total, and we split the travel up between all of us. So there's usually about 4 engineers that we send to every race, and even the standalone, Xfinity or Camping World truck races will send at least 2 engineers there as well for support. And it's kind of just the luck of the draw. We go all over.
Okay. I didn't know if they would have you specialize on a style of track so that way you can focus on tires that work at Bristol and Martinsville and Darlington, as opposed to, jumping from Martinsville to Daytona and having 2 totally different styles.
Yeah. So I guess a good part about our group, since we work so well as a team, is that all of us kind of get experience at all of the different kind of tracks.
Okay.
And so when we test, that's part of learning as well. And we do a lot of in-house testing too.
So you got your own racetrack?
It's a machine that tests different. We work with like Ford, Toyota, and GM to help tell us how the cars are reacting on the track. So for, Martinsville, like you said, is going to be different than a Charlotte. So we do in-house testing to see kind of how tires will react to that, so that we're more prepared also when we go to the racetrack.
And now when you're at the racetrack, we were kind of talking a little bit about this, when there is an issue on the track and you hear the announcers say, well, two of the four Joe Gibbs racing cars have had issues with tires, and GoodYear engineers are working with them to figure out what's going on to see if it's an issue. That's when they're talking about GoodYear engineers, that gets to be your fun part, right?
Yes, yep. Yeah, and we're working with the teams and crew chiefs, all weekend. So usually they might see something in practice that we can help them with. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
How's your schedule work out for the weekend at the track? Are you traveling like Thursday to the track, or do you travel on Wednesday and then leave right after the race, or how's that work out for you?
We get to travel there usually whatever day before the practice day is. So for a normal race weekend, that's Friday to Sunday. We get there on Thursday and then leave on Monday morning.
Do you ever get to mount any of the tires, or do you get to look at those guys and go, I got a college degree?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't get to mount them. I just ask them if they could please help me if I need one mounted or unmounted. Yeah.
Not going to wrestle with that interliner, huh?
No.
Those guys
no,
are mad. I tell you, that's probably one of my favorite things to walk by is watching those guys, because it's an assembly line, and they work their butts off getting all those tires mounted up, ready to go, all set for the teams.
Yep, put into sets out. Yep.
Yeah, you come to a dirt track. We don't have interliners, but we do all the work with a pair of iron bars in our hands. So.
That sounds rough.
It can be.
We're glutton for punishment.
Yeah, we're not that. We don't have engineering degrees, obviously.
So I don't mean to make it sound like you guys are doing a terrible job. Obviously, you're doing a great job. And when we've had very few issues the last couple of years, but I'm sure that whenever you guys are focused on a new aero package, that's your main goal, is to make sure everything runs very smoothly.
Yes. Yeah, we want to try to work out all the kinks if there's any that we see. The new aero package is going to affect how the tires react to the track, and, maybe how the drivers are driving as well. So we just want to make sure that we're bringing the best tires to the track. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, how often do they mention the tire they ran at the Brickyard 7 or 8 years ago that lasted about 10 laps?
Yeah.
They mention that to you every now and then when you're trying something or running an experiment?
Oh, yes. Yeah, we hear about that all the time. Even I hear about it still from some crew chiefs or team guys just walking around the track. They like to bring that up.
I bet it's kind of loaded over you just a little bit, just because they're always worry warts.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, we have pretty good relationships with all of the teams, just because we're always, we talk to them almost after every set comes off the car. And even during practice, sometimes someone will come run out on pit road and grab one of us to bring back and talk with, the tire specialist or the crew chief, depending on what the issue is. So we do have pretty good relationships with all of the teams.
I think that's one aspect that a lot of people just, unless they're able to be in the pits during the race, you don't get that interaction a lot. You don't see it happening, that GoodYear is actually at the track monitoring tires almost right away when they come off the car, just to be able to get some extra information and to be able to use that for the next race or two races or this new aero package.
Yes. Yep. You got it. And a lot of the time, too, I mean, we're back in the garage, so it's hard to see behind the toolboxes and team guys and everything else.
No. Well, yeah, it's hard for me to see behind those guys because they're like 8 feet tall and I'm 5'9", so they make it hard to see around.
I'm 5'2".
Oh, my. But that's good. You're perfect height for a tire, though. I mean, you don't
Yeah,
have to do a
yeah,
lot of
really
bending
easy
over
to
like those
see.
guys.
When you're doing the tire temps, I know you write them on a sheet of paper and you give them to the driver to take back to the crew chief. Do you guys keep track of that stuff too, or do you just write down something if it's really odd?
No, so actually, this last year we implemented a new way to take tire temps. So it's all through what we call a pyrometer, and it's digital. So we kind of print a little receipt now, and we record every car that stops for temps gets recorded, and then we pull that. And we do analyze it and save it into a report so that we know kind of, what the tire temps are looking like, if we're on the edge, for heat or something like that. There's a lot of information that can tell us, and we definitely keep track of it.
Yeah, like I said, having as a tech official, there was times I'd be out there working on pit road, just directing traffic like in practice. So I'd see, you guys doing that. And I just wondered if you ever, kept it all. And I was thinking, man, that'd be writing down 2 slips or something. And it's like I never saw you do that. But, you had to keep track of something, I would think. So that's why.
Yeah.
I would think if somebody had some oddball setup, like Rusty Wallace was always famous for running a lot of camber compared to everybody else, and that's why they made the Rusty Wallace rule on their camber limit and stuff like that. And, I can remember GoodYear people coming and telling you got way too much camber in this one, and stuff like that. So
yeah, the tire temps can tell a team a lot about how the car is set up, and if they're on the edge too, and if we see something that looks weird, we can go then talk to the team and be like, hey, help.
Yeah, back this one off.
Do you guys do you have that ability to do that? If you hear or suspect a team is running too much camber or too low of tire pressure to start off with, do you go over to them and say, hey, I know what you guys are trying to do something, but we're strongly recommending you don't go below this PSI?
Yes, the teams know we have minimum tire pressures for every racetrack, and they know what they are. But everyone, of course, they're trying to push the limit and go as fast as they can also. So if we see something funky, then we can talk to the tire specialist or go talk to the crew chief. But and a lot of the times, there's a lot of money invested in that race car too. So that's part of that conversation I think is important. But ultimately it's left up to them.
Yeah, a lot of these tracks, if they blow a tire, they're not getting that car back. Some of the high speeds and how fast you'll react to that wall. I mean, they're really pushing the limit. I mean, not to be much of a cliche, but it really is.
Yes. Yep, you got it.
There was a bit of an epidemic about 2-3 years ago of drivers getting out of the car and blaming GoodYear for bad tires, and then we would come to find out later that week that they were running 5 to 8 pounds less PSI. Was that frustrating for you guys that you didn't get as big of a bully pulpit to speak about that and say, no, we ran a fine tire. 39, 40 other teams had just fine, and this guy ran it 10 pounds lighter. Was that frustrating?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the times, too, when the driver gets out of the car, they're all upset because of what happened. So emotions are really high. And then sometimes they don't know exactly how their car was set up either. So, they can only react to, I guess, the information they're given. And, sometimes in the heat of the moment, they probably aren't thinking straight either because they just, something bad happened to them, took them out of a race and took them away from winning. So it's part of it. And a lot of the times we'll have our sales and marketing go on TV if it's a really bad and say something, or talk to other media that's at the track about, what we think is going on. Because, sometimes things are happening and it's not always their fault. It could be, an unforeseen super hot day or super cold day, and the cars are going a lot faster than we had even anticipated. So some things are out of everybody's control, but the emotions are still there when something like that happens.
And then some guy like me is coming up and sticking a mic in their face.
You're a lot bigger man than I am, because you seem to want to take the high road in that.
A bigger man than you are?
That's what I'm saying. I get pretty frustrated at those guys, and Dirk and I have talked about on the show before. They seem to have free reign to blast you guys, but they very rarely compliment you guys when you have a great race, which is a vast majority of the time.
Yeah. I think a lot of them, when someone's angry and blasting Goodyear, then you remember it more than if a driver, wins race and said, "Oh, the Goodyear brought a great tire today."
Yeah.
Because it does happen more than you think. We take note of it, obviously, since we have so much invested in it. But
is that a part of that new digital system you guys implemented this year?
Yeah.
That driver gets a green mark. This one got a red one.
Yeah,
well,
and a lot of the times, if we know that they're upset, then we'll go back, maybe on Monday or Tuesday and call them or the crew chief and find out, other things that could have been going on at that time or what we could do to fix it. Usually anytime something happens, even if it's we just suspect that they ran over something and it's cut, we take the tire back, look at it more, communicate with the team, let them know. So.
Is it surprising how much data you can get off of a tire even after it's damaged?
It is, yeah. And sometimes it's good too because, when a tire is mounted, you can't see nearly as much as when you get it off the wheel and back into Goodyear, and you could just, tell a lot more information.
Can you look at a tire and tell the identification code on it?
Well, yeah, there is a code on it.
Well, no, can she just look at it and know exactly what the code is? Not by reading it, but...
If it depends on, I've only been around for 3 years, but if I know if it's recent enough, then yes, because a lot of our tires have evolved over the past few years, especially with the changing of the aero package, and then updates to the tires that make them more durable. But for a lot of them, you could, if someone spouts off sometimes you spout off a number, then sometimes you can tell what they are, or we can always go look. It's super easy for us to find out what it is.
Well, Sam, we do appreciate you joining us this morning. We can't wait. We hope to see you at Kansas. Is that one of the tracks you think maybe you'll hit?
Or Iowa?
I think it's definitely a possibility. We haven't gotten our full travel schedule laid out yet. We've only done up until about Vegas, but in the next week or two, we'll get the rest of the year sorted out. But I think there's a pretty good chance, usually, one of them.
Well, we'd love to meet up with you and talk to you again and maybe do a little follow-up interview and see what all we missed.
Sure.
And,
thanks so much for joining us. We do appreciate it, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks for having me.
We're going to take a break. We'll be back in turn number 3. Thanks for hanging around with us on the front stretch.
Powder coating your chassis seems like a luxury until you spill nearly anything on it and watch as the paint drips away. That's when you'll wonder why you didn't take advantage of Red Oak Fabrication's high-quality, durable, and beautiful powder coating for just $275 on a bare chassis. From simple base colors to glitter-lined neon colors, a powder-coated chassis from Red Oak Fabrication will give you a much more durable surface that your sponsors will love seeing in Victory Lane. Email Jordan F. at redoakfabrication.com to book your time.
Every race car driver has run into the same problem. It's well past normal parts store closing hours, but you need that one to finish your car. The guys who brought you white knuckle racing by the river bring you Joe's Karting Racing Parts and Tire Store. Open until 10 p.m. Monday to Thursday and open until 11 p.m. on Friday and Saturday. A parts store that fits your after-hours schedule, and you can turn a few laps at Joe's Karting while you're waiting for your part to get pulled from their warehouse. joeskarting.com for more information.
It's checkers or wreckers as we enter turn 4 on the front stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs.
Just about ready to wrap this baby up. Turn 4 brought to you by Quaker Steak and Lube, the official watering hole of the front stretch. Get over to Quaker Steak and Lube today for all of the all of the late model action on MAV TV, as is regular. Also, all of the NFL action and college football set to kick off here shortly. The playoffs actually started already. Or the bowl season, excuse me.
Yeah, bowl season started. Playoffs don't start for a couple weeks, but speaking of a couple weeks, should be about Chili Bowl time.
Absolutely. Do you want to do something for that? Or I hesitate to do it because I have a good time doing it, but the problem is that it usually runs so dang late that we put Quaker Steak in a pretty bad spot. A tough spot, actually.
Well, if we can get more than 5 or 6 people to stay out there, I mean, they don't mind selling beer.
Yeah.
And they're not breaking any laws. And as long as Chris okays it, I'm good with it. You know me, I'll hang out and watch you guys drink.
Yeah. That sounds like a great idea. Well, maybe we'll do that. Watch Facebook and watch our event page, our events coming up on Facebook. See if we can get that scheduled here coming up soon. Dirk, we've had another one of those great years. Really, when we set out in 2019, I wanted to focus more on interviews with local dirt drivers and just interviews in general. I didn't want half to 3/4 of the show be us talking. I think you can get that on most commentary shows, but what we can offer is local drivers, local content, local information, and I really wanted to focus on that. And without sounding too much like I toot my own horn, I think we did a really good job with that. You bringing in some of the interviews with some legendary people and some new events. I mean, we had April on from a car show. We had Allie on from the SAC car show. I'm looking through my notes, and Peter Fink joined for another car show. A lot of cool events and a lot of really good stuff happened this year that I think we were able to help promote.
Yeah, and I mean, those are kind of all feel-good things. Everybody likes what those things were all about. You got a lot of car shows where it's just guys come and show their cars. There's no money involved. There's no charity involved. But the ones with the charity, the Humane Society that Pete Fink does, I think is a great deal. I mean, all three of them were great as far as. And then we also had the Master Sergeant on from the Marines.
Yes.
With the Toys for Tots deal. So we did 4 real good interviews there that had to do with car shows. We did the auto show for the first time and did a bunch of interviews down at the auto show, which we're going to work on again. That's coming up probably in March again, and we'll see what we can put together. We did some of the live nights over at Quaker Steak, and the one thing that we backed off on was no Legends of the Dirt.
Yeah, that was, unfortunately, it was something that just kind of
ran its course.
Yeah, I didn't want to end it because I loved doing those, and it was a great opportunity for me to learn about the history of the sport and some of those little stories, as well as fans that may have just never heard of them. But yeah, we kind of ran its course. Same thing with the young guns that we had to end a little while ago. While there's plenty of young drivers in the area, it's a struggle to get them to fill out the information and get it over to us. And I spent more time chasing that down than anything. So that unfortunately had to go away. But the Legends of the Dirt series was a fantastic series that I loved to do. And by the way, if you want to go back and listen to those, that's some of the best stuff we've ever done. Oh. Just sitting down for 20, 30 minutes with these drivers and talking about their history and running through all the bleeps and the cutting out the colorful language that the FCC won't let me air. And
oh, you mean Jeff Akey?
Yeah.
Or Ikey?
But that was something that was tough to give up. But you're right. It was time. It needed to. It
wasn't necessarily time. We just we're out of drivers.
Yeah.
You want legends of the sport. And right now, everybody pretty much been covered that was in kind of our area, and plus a few national guys.
Yeah, and the national guys, there's so few of them. It seems like there's a lot. You've got your Sammy Swindells and your Scott Bloomquist.
Steve Kinzer, Dan Rosowski. The one we did not get done that we worked on, and we'd still like to get him on the show is Bob Pierce. Mm-hmm. Bobby, the current Bobby Pierce driver's father, who is a very talented late model guy.
Maybe that's one of them we'll do as a one-off still left to go. But the Legends of the Dirt series was a great thing. But I'm still kind of thumbing through here and looking at all the interviews. And I think that, every show we had at least 2 drivers on. Nearly every show. Some of them we did. I mean, I'm just trying to think.
Well, I think shows where we had just 1, and we had a few shows where we had 3. But
somewhere I think we had 4. I mean, I got to say, one of my favorite interviews was when we sat in here that night and planned on taking 10 to 15 minutes with Jack Dover, Joey, and Brody Tolick, along with Luke Cochran, and we recorded for 51 minutes. And I had to cut so much out of it because we only had so much time for the show to be on the radio. But all of it is still pretty much in the YouTube version, our podcast. That was a great interview and a lot of fun and great stories. I mean, those guys did it. That was entertainment.
Yeah, and I mean that was the whole story behind the trip and everything was just remarkable, awesome. Yeah. I don't know what word to use in there, but definitely something we needed to talk about and get out to listeners. And as always, if you guys have any ideas, somebody gets their first win in a sport compact or a go-kart or whatever, and we can try and get them a little PR and make everybody happy, contact us. We'll do what we can to put people on the radio. That's what we're here for.
It makes our job so much easier too.
Oh yeah. I mean, we're not having to chase everybody down and people are coming to us. Oh.
Well, and thinking of the content, I mean, just having a conversation about a driver's season, it's a conversation sitting around a bar. That's what we want this to sound like, rather than us sitting in the studio talking about, the history of this or our thought on that. I just don't find that as entertaining as actually sitting down with Jack Dover and talking about the details. I've learned so much about sprint car racing from our interviews with Jack Dover, because he takes a different approach to it, that there's a little bit more of a money approach now that he's in charge of his finances. Just the little things that I learned that he pays attention to. And then talking to other drivers, they're like, oh, yeah, we do that. We've done that for several years. But, I never had any idea. I'd never know that.
Yeah, I mean, most drivers are out there. I mean, everybody works on a budget. Well, there's a few people that don't, that have paid for rides and whatnot. Like your World of Outlaws guys, they, for the most part, the guys that are running that series full time, there's not a whole lot of budget on some of those guys' stuff. But everybody that's running a weekly program is on a budget. Yeah, and
they got to be really careful about where they're spending their money and finding ways to trim the budget back. And it's interesting to watch how these guys handle that stuff, because I could never do it. Thank God they do.
And I know Andrew Koziski Racing, they've got not much of a fundraiser, but a pretty good party coming up here in January.
Yeah.
That you can check it out on Facebook. And, I think it's $10 to come and eat some food and drink some beer. And I'm sure they'll have some racing videos or something going on there.
They're going to be broadcasting I believe it's the Wild West Shootout.
Oh, is it the shootout weekend?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's January 11th is the event. I'm actually going to be emceeing it for them. So Andrew asked if I'd be able to help out with that, and I happily obliged. I'd be able to sit down with some racing buddies and
drink beer.
Right, and do my favorite thing, which is sit behind a microphone and try to entertain a group of people. So that'll be coming up January 11th. It is open to the public. Tickets are on sale. You can find it on the Andrew Koziski 53 Facebook page. More information, all that kind of great stuff. So, the ticket gets you beer and food, and then there'll be memorabilia available to purchase. His race gear, he's going to have some exclusive stuff available for purchase opportunities, and the whole thing is just to maybe kind of bridge the gap between the end of the race season and the beginning of the race season, to get you out and have some fun, to watch some great racing on TV, and then raise some money for his operation, which I think is a brilliant idea.
Well, the money's going to come from buying the paraphernalia. $10 a head for beer and food. And I know who's catering that? Some barbecue joint or something.
Will Smoky Barbecue, one of my favorite barbecue joints in the area. They're out in Gretna.
I remember it was a barbecue joint that was going to cater it.
Mm-hmm.
So at $10 to get in, there's no money going to the racing operation out of that $10.
Right. It's the cover is just to pay for the cost of the beer and the food.
So, by the way, are you going to wear a tux since you're the MC?
No, I will not be wearing a tux. But I did go get fitted for my tux for the Eagle Raceway banquet, which is coming up in just a couple of days.
So you do have to wear a tux. Well, just hold on
for
to
that
it for
one.
a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I do have to. I'm not going to wear a tux to that. That's not going to be happening.
How about a fire suit?
Maybe that, yeah. A fire suit, yeah. I just looked it up. Yeah, it's $10 will get you entry into the party with dinner and drinks, along with airing of night number 1 of the Wild West Shootout live from Arizona on the big screens. You can get more information, once again, by following Andrew Koziski 53 Racing, their event page, Andrew Koziski Racing 2020 Kickoff Party, or emailing andrewkoziski53@gmail.com. More information for that. And I meant to talk about that as we're coming up. Maybe we'll get Andrew on the show next weekend or the following weekend, talk a little bit more about that. But really cool event that they're doing. I really think that's a great idea. And I-80 Speedway announced their 2020 schedule on the day we were recording. Finally, something happens, not
early.
After we recorded. One of the big things that came out of I-80 Speedway in the World of Outlaws was actually the ones to announce it first, was that there is a June 3rd, Wednesday, June 3rd, the World of Outlaws sprint cars will be returning to Nebraska for the first time in 2 years. They've taken the last 2 years off.
I think it's 2 years they have not been here.
So the World of Outlaws making their return to the big I-80 Speedway. They've been down in Eagle for a couple of years, took a couple of years off. Now they're returning June 3rd. That's Wednesday, June 3rd. And then the I-80 Dirt Classic coming up after that. USAC will make their wingless return to I-80 Speedway July 9th. We'll have to cover this more as we get closer to, as we get a little bit more in depth and kind of dive into this. But yeah, the Silver Dollar Nationals this year, a week later than it traditionally is, and it will kick off Wednesday. So it's now a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday show. Wednesday is going to feature the Malvern Bank Super Late Model Series, the Don Moore Tribute Race, and Unsanctioned Modified. Then you'll have Thursday is going to be the Malvern Bank Go 50, which has become a big staple for the Silver Dollar Nationals after it was rescheduled to kick off the Silver Dollar Nationals several years ago after being rained out in May.
Well, it was just last year that
2 years ago.
Was it 2 years ago that they moved that? I was
2 years ago,
that was last year.
It got rained out in May. They moved it to the weekend before, or the Thursday before. It turned out to be a huge deal. Everyone loved it, so they kept it there last year. I know that he's going to keep it. Like they mentioned and they've announced, they're keeping it there this year, and then they're going to explore maybe moving it as it's standalone again, because Malvern Bank wouldn't mind having its own standalone race again. But then the Silver Dollar Nationals presented by Imperial Tile on Friday and Saturday, featuring the Lucas Oil Late Model Series and the USMTS Modifieds. I-80 Speedway finally releasing their schedule as they get set for 2020. The tentative schedule can be found on I-80 Speedway's Facebook page, and we will also share it there too.
And we get a little closer to racing season, I'm sure we'll get Joe on to talk about it.
Oh, yeah. I can't say thank you enough to every one of the drivers that joined us in 2019 for coming on the show. We had some guys on multiple times, a couple of drivers on a couple of times, and a few on one time. But just great conversation. If you have any drivers that you follow throughout the area that you like, just go to youtube.com, search for The Front Stretch and your driver. I guarantee you we've spoken to him, if not this year, over the last couple of years. And if we haven't, send us a note. We would be more than happy to get him on the show. There's not a single driver that we won't let on this radio show. There's nobody, to my knowledge, there's nobody that's been banned, right?
I'm not sure. I didn't know I had a ban button, but maybe I'll throw that out there and scratch a few people.
That'll be a part of your 2020 contract negotiation.
Yeah.
You get a veto, right?
Button.
You get a veto vote. Now we're not letting him on. Anyways, big thank you to all the drivers that joined us. It's been an amazing year, and can't wait to see what 2020 lines up for us. Thank you to all of our great sponsors: Red Oak Fabrication, Quaker Steak and Lube, Joe's Karting. I'm going to forget some of them because we have so many of them that have helped us out.
The body shop people.
First Detail Supply.
There we go.
And Rick Havenridge of Wealth Partners, Jim Blazina of NP Dodge Real Estate.
Chad Robb with Mr. Fantasy Sports.
Chad Robb, by the way, if you're into any fantasy sports and you're looking for an advantage, NASCARFantasyTips.com. Or fantasy. Oh boy, I'm going to screw up his because
Fantasy.
I haven't done his. Search for him on Facebook, and search for. He does a phenomenal job with his NASCAR tips. I think he said that 80% of his subscribers, somewhere along the line of like 70 to 80% of his subscribers, had their annual fee paid back by the fourth race of the season.
Yeah, I was going to say it was by the middle of March or something, and that was playing on, was it DraftKings, I think?
Yeah, just all the different platforms. I mean, he puts out fantasy tips for almost every major
whether it's a
fantasy.
five-driver team or a two-driver or a one-and-done or whatever it happens to be. He plays all the games and gives you the strategies on how to win.
And not just racing either. He helps out with football, baseball, basketball. He does a lot of different sports. Very knowledgeable and a great guy all around. So we thank every one of our sponsors along with Chad Robb who have helped us out this year.
And hopefully got some irons in the work for some new sponsors coming up.
Yep.
And we'll see what happens with that.
Once again, thank everybody. Have a safe New Year's. Don't forget, it's so much easier to Uber over the holidays rather than drive home even buzzed, because that is still drunk driving. We don't want anybody ending up in the drunk tank or any worse than that.
Yeah, our budget for bail is very, very low.
We know. I tried to test it one night. But if you are worried at all, if you've had more than one or two beers, please just call an Uber. It's so much easier than ending up a night in jail or something tragic happening. Thank you to every one of you that supports us. Thank you, Dirk, for everything you do for this show. You've been a massive contribution the last couple of years, and I don't take enough time to say thank you for that.
Well, I need to thank you for, getting me on here and letting me do some of this stuff. Obviously, we're in the spot with just about anybody else that works in racing in the area. We're not in it for the money. We're in it for the love of the sport.
Have a safe and happy. Oh, sorry.
And as far as the buzz driving goes, I think it's Hopman and Hopman will probably still have their call a cab deal.
Yeah, free ride home.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So take advantage of it, folks.
Absolutely.
You don't need to be hauled down to jail if you've had 3 beers in the matter of 2 or 3 hours, you need to call somebody and get a ride.
Absolutely. We have got 2 great, I know we have more than this, but David and Tara Ackerson, who are great supporters of our show, former winners of the show, they're going to be out on patrol that night, and I don't want them to have to do any work at all. So please, make my wish come true. We'll see you guys in 2020. Thank you so much for all of your support, and we'll talk to you soon. For Dirk Houston, I'm Dan Taylor. This has been The Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting on AM 590.
The official watering hole of The Front Stretch has you covered any day of the week with the best wings, great burgers, and amazing steaks. Each weekday from 4 to 6 is happy hour, featuring $1 off draft and well drinks plus $4 Luberitas. Mondays are kids' night. Tuesdays are all-you-can-eat wings for $12.95, and the lube even delivers to the Council Bluffs area. Like Quaker Steak and Lube Council Bluffs on Facebook for a full list of weekly events.
Get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Mid-America Drive, Council Bluffs.
Hey, look at that. You're sitting on your couch playing Halo, Madden, or NASCAR while your friends are at Joe's Karting. Each lap is an adrenaline-filled, heart-pumping, white-knuckle experience that you can only get at the Metro's largest indoor karting track. Eco-friendly Honda engines rip you around the professionally designed road course at breakneck speeds. Can you reach the 14-second lap bracket? There's only one way to find out. Put the controller down and get to Joe's Karting, 23rd Avenue in Council Bluffs next to Quaker Steak and Lube.
This has been the Front Stretch Radio Show, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. To contact Dan or Dirk, find them on Facebook at The Front Stretch or email them at frontstretch590@gmail.com. If you missed any part of today's show or want to hear a previous show, subscribe to the Joe's Karting YouTube page, where you can find almost every Front Stretch show.